crying? No, I'm not crying. You're crying.
It's a long hard road when you walk alone. Goddamn, these city lights, they just shine so bright.
These aren't tears of sadness because you're leaving me. I've just been cutting onions. I'm making a lasagna for one.
Show me the way home.
No. Are you crying? Are you crying? There's no crying.
Just a man, so wonderful. Thought this world could offer so much more. Well, I've been traveling so damn long. Can't rest this weary soul, can't carry on. Show me the way home.
Hello, everyone out there. Welcome back to the Slackline Quote of the Day broadcast. You are back once again with the boss.
The boss is coming.
That's a made-up dumb fairy tale name, you.
We are here chatting quotes. It is Monday, April 2nd. Hope nobody got too tricked on their Easter Sunday as well as April Fool's Day. Saw some people with their pregnancy gags and that type of thing floating around Instagram. That's not nice, people. Your grandparents, grandma might be waiting to see that pop up and to have it pop up on their Facebook. Not very nice. Okay, so pranks can be fun. The pregnancy one thing I think is super lame and can be hurtful to old, excited family members that want to see their grandchildren. We are back after another little hiatus. I think, a Monday show last week, but then dropped the ball for the rest of it. Been pretty busy, got some other stuff, but we are back again. Thanks to our sponsor today. It is Man Up. Think you're too macho to cry? Try new Man Up. It will give you the emotional security you need to show your true feelings like a man. That is Man Up. I think that's a pill. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but also a great thing for you, for the women and or anybody that is dating a man out there to pick up. Somebody that thinks they're a little too tough to show their emotional side. Maybe you can spike their tea with a little Man Up. Okay, and that brings us to our quote today from a very fantastic, funny group, band, duo out of New Zealand. They are Flight of the Conchords, and their quote is, "I'm not crying, it's just been raining on my face." That is the Flight of the Conchords, a very funny group. If you've never seen them before, heard them before, I recommend you check them out. Very famous, so if you haven't, then you are missing out. 2 seasons of that really excellent show. 2, maybe 3. I think there's a third one. That brings us to our story today, which is the movies that have made me cry, the films that made me cry. I sat down and thought about it and got a list of 8. There are definitely more. I'll fully admit that. Some that I've had a single tear to. Some that I count being emotional during those films to be more about the situation I was in than the actual film itself. And but these are the ones that truly made me, when I really sat down and think about it, cry, and or the first ones that made me cry. And we're going to go through a nice little list with a couple stories and hopefully find that entertaining. So, these are in no particular order, but I will start with number one. The first story that came to mind, probably the most crying I've ever done during a movie, and it was Marley and Me. There are actually two stories that go along with Marley and Me and tears. In regards to me, one is when it first came out. It was in the theaters, and I was in my last year of high school, and I was dating a girl at the time, very lovely girl, who had a dog who had passed away a couple weeks before. And so I thought that this would be a good idea to bring her to a movie about a dog. I never had dogs growing up, or pets really, so I didn't really understand that emotional tie. I have a dog now, as the listeners know, Boris, and I can't imagine going to see a movie about a dog, even if it was like a really happy movie about a dog, which Marley and Me is, for the most part. But of course the dog dies at the end, and oh my God, she was a wreck, and I realized pretty quickly that it was a big mistake to take her to this movie. And she was actually kind of mad about it, and yeah, understandably so. I mean, we laughed about it later, but at the time, not a good move. Another story about Marley and Me, I was watching it for the second time only, a couple years later. I was with my roommate at the time, and it, we watched through it. I still hadn't had the dog at this point. But, yeah, we sat and we watched through it, and at the end, the kid starts watching the tape of the puppy as a kid, or the tape of Marley as a puppy, and kind of crying and laughing, and oh my God, I was losing it. So I go to the kitchen, and I'm like, I can feel myself literally like shaking and just like about to bawl. Like if I and I just start chopping vegetables just to make dinner, and my roommate comes in, she's like, "Are you okay, man?" And I was like, if I watch any more of that, I'm going to break into like a 13-year-old girl cry. And she just laughs, and I was like, I'm serious. Like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Oh my God, it was brutal. So yeah, that's probably the most emotional I've been watching a movie for sure. We'll move on to number 2 is Toy Story 3. That's another one I saw in theaters, and I've only seen a couple times since. I think maybe I haven't even watched it since. I don't know. I think I should watch Toy Story 3 again, but I remember being really emotional watching it, thinking that they were all going to burn. Of course, they weren't going to let them burn. That would be craziness, but I thought that they were going to let them burn. And then when they find their new home and they get played with and stuff, it was a lot of that, I think, was the context that I thought that Toy Story 3 was going to be the last Toy Story. And the Toy Story movies are my favorite movies just in general, not even just animated or Pixar movies, but my favorite movies. And yeah, so I was pretty emotional thinking that Toy Story was never coming out. I think they made a 4th one, and they're still in the process of making it. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that's happening. So like to see that soon. Yeah, I really think that the Toy Story films are probably like the best trilogy of all time as far as films go. And if you disagree, then you can fight me. As far as quality and consistency goes, all 3 of them are top tier movies, and you can't really choose which of the 3 are the best ones, and you can't argue that at least one of them is one of the best movies ever. And so you're kind of like, okay, yeah. Anyways, that's Toy Story. We move on to another animated film, and that is Up. It's pretty self-explanatory. I think everybody felt something in Up in the first, 10 minutes of the film. It's almost a little beautiful short film in itself about love and the loss of a loved one. And man, like I went and saw it with the same girlfriend I saw Marley and Me with, and we were both just like a wreck after the first 10 minutes, and like I don't think I really fully recovered for the rest of the movie, cuz like that's all I could think about was that first 10 minutes. So yeah, that was a pretty emotional ride, that one. Number 4 is one that people might think is kind of silly. I even think it's kind of silly, but for some reason it gets me every time, and it is Armageddon. And all around not a good movie. It's got some nice moments. The kid with his dad that he doesn't know is his dad, and finds out he's his dad when he's on his way to save the earth. That brings a tear close to the eye. And then when Harry stays behind to blow up the asteroid and sends that message back to Grace, whew, man. Yes, so many emotions. Like, why? The other crazy guy wanted to stay there anyways. Why didn't you just leave that guy there? He wanted to be there. He had a bunch of debt. He borrowed like $1 million, thinking he didn't have to pay it back. Crazy stuff. So yeah, and that single tear that Bruce Willis, who's not a fantastic actor most of the time, but that time he brought that single tear out, and man, I was gone. And that is the first movie I ever cried to, was Armageddon. And I was probably like 11 or 12, but it made me cry. So there you go. Bringing us to number 5, Logan, just came out last year. Maybe some people think that's silly again too. I talked to some professional writers who kind of balked at it. They're film professors too, because all their students were telling, oh, you have to go see Logan and stuff. And he saw it. He's like, yeah, it's okay, but like, it's still, ugh. And you're like, well, you're the one that's not separating that from superhero movie or just movie. But I explained to him, I was like, for us, for our generation, we've seen Hugh Jackman, for better or worse, as Wolverine for pretty much our whole life. Like, he is Wolverine to us. And to see him go out with a really, great movie, whether you think it's like, phenomenal or not, I don't think you can deny that it's really good, and has some really emotional moments, and some great action, and just a good all around movie. Seeing him die and go out on a good note like that, and in a way that is, so personal, with it being his daughter and that type of thing. It was a really nice send off for him, and I think that's where the tears for Wolverine came from. More so for Hugh Jackman, and like pride for him and love for him. And so yeah, thank you, Hugh, for all of your years of great service as Wolverine. Even though you were way too tall, people didn't care because you were fucking awesome. Number 6 is I Am Sam. I Am Sam is a movie with Sean Penn, Dakota Fanning, Laura Dern. Sean Penn plays a mentally challenged father, gets fired from his job, and can't deemed to be unfit to care for his daughter, and she gets taken away by social services, and given to like a foster home. And then he starts going through like a court battle for her parental rights, basically. Michelle Pfeiffer, I think, is her lawyer, actually, or is his lawyer in the film. And yeah, just a really emotional film about a guy that faces a lot of struggles, but really just cares for his daughter. And people are trying to help him, and they have sympathy for him. But at the same time, they're concerned about the well-being of the young girl, who's really, really well played by Dakota Fanning. She does an awesome job. I think it was one of her first movies, and she just kills it. And there's one moment where he's built a bunch of origami. I think it's fortune tellers, but it might be swans. I was pretty sure it was fortune tellers. That was like a thing he did with his daughter all the time, was they built origami, and He built this like big wall of it to keep himself behind when he was really sad at one point, and kind of breaks through it. And yeah, I remember that being a point where I broke down. Again, I was pretty young when I saw that movie for the first time, but like maybe 12 or 13. But man, really, really hit me. And yeah, I haven't seen it in a long time. I should watch it again. Pretty much built on great performances all around, including the social services lawyer who Richard something, not Jenkins. People would recognize him. He was in Ray. He was in Jurassic Park. He's been in a lot of stuff. Yeah. So that is I Am Sam. Sean Penn, Laura Dern, Dakota Fanning. Made me weep. Number 7. It's a fortunate thing that I came up with number 7 as I was going through this list, because I realized I left a number, or I went straight from 6 to 8 on my list when I was writing it down. And so I'm going to slip in number 7 last minute. Was one I thought of right off the top as I started talking about Marley and Me and my dog. And that is Blackfish. Blackfish is a documentary about orca whales in captivity. And if you haven't seen it, it's absolutely crushing. It actually kind of changed like my whole sort of view on aquariums and zoos and just animal shows and even like eating animals and stuff like that. The intelligence of animals made me question being a vegetarian for a while. I tried it, couldn't do it, but yeah, Blackfish, if you haven't seen it, man, especially having an animal for myself at that point, it really just made me think about how we treat them and how we're thinking about it, even in a setting where we're being scientific and stuff like that. It's it shook me too, because I remember going to SeaWorld as a kid, and the people there, they answer questions and stuff like that, and you assume they know what they're talking about, because like it's an educational institution, or it's supposed to be, but watch this movie and apparently it's just not. They're just spreading lies about their animals to try and make themselves look at least halfway decent of caretakers for them, but they're just not. So yeah, Blackfish added to the list. Movies that made me cry. And the final one, number 8, not actually a movie, but it was the stupid Cineplex Snowman short that used to play before the Cineplex movies. I remember it specifically seeing it for the first time before seeing The Force Awakens. And my younger brother and I went to this movie. We were super excited about it. Just like, oh yes, new Star Wars. Haven't seen new Star Wars. Was sitting right close front. I had already felt kind of like guilty about leaving my dog at home all day. Not all day, but like I hadn't seen him that much and I was missing him. And then this short comes on, where if you haven't seen it, I'll give a brief story. It's this snowman who comes to life thanks to this young girl, and she plays with him, and he like projects movies onto the fence using the light from their house, and he does little films with his hands. The winter goes by, he makes these films, and then in the spring he's starting to melt, so they put him in the fridge, and then she would take him out every winter, and it was super happy. But then she started to get to be like a teenager, and like would leave him in the fridge without even saying hi, and then all of a sudden, like, it flashes forward to like her being like 30 years old or something, with her own kid at home. She takes him to takes their kid to her grandparents' house, and just has like a flash of memory of the snowman, and opens up the thing, and he's been sitting in there for like 15 years, and he just like unsticks himself from the side of the fridge and like looks at her, and they're all happy, and her daughter now is playing with the snowman, and he's making little things for her, little projections for her. And then it ends, and it flashes across the screen with make time for the things you love. And I'm just sitting there like, oh my God.
why is this showing before this movie? And like, oh my God, I was just like tearing up. Like tears were running down my face before Star Wars even started. And it's like right before it started too. It was like, make time for the things you love. Black space. And then the Lucasfilm thing comes up. And I'm sitting there like already like, oh God. And I remember talking to my little brother after Star Wars would come out, and I looked at him and was like, man, that snowman thing, did that like make you get really emotional? Because I was like crying. And he was like, man, I thought that was really fucked up. And I was like, oh, really? And he's like, yeah, like she just like left him in there for like 15 years and like brings him out and he's just like fine. And I was like, oh, you're right. And that made me even more sad about it. So yeah, that was the films that made me cry. I would consider that a film. It was like a little 5-minute ad, short film, animated thing. So yeah, those are the top 8 movies that made me cry. There are more, definitely. I find myself tearing up at a lot of things, actually. TV shows and stuff, too. Maybe that's a totally different list, the TV shows that made me cry. But yeah, there it is. And that is brought to us again today by Man Up. Think you're too macho to cry? Try new Man Up. It will give you all the emotional security you need to show your true feelings like a real man. That is Man Up. Again, I think that's some sort of pill or medicine or some type of balm maybe that somebody puts somewhere on. I don't know. Buy it. It's good. It's sponsoring the show. And they're sponsoring the quote today from one of my favorite bands, duo out of New Zealand, Flight of the Conchords, from their song I'm Not Crying. The quote is, I'm not crying, it's just been raining on my face. That is, once again, quote of the day broadcast. Thank you once again for tuning into the Slack line. Thanks once again to the Crooked Spies for providing their music to us today. Make sure you're following the Slack line on Instagram at the.slack.line, on Twitter at slackline_radio, and on iTunes and YouTube at the Slackline Podcast. You have been listening to The Boss.
The boss is coming!
That's a made-up dumb fairy tale name, you
And happy Monday to everybody. Hope you have a good rest of the week. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye for now.